We have developed speed, but we have shut ourselves in. Machinery that gives abundance has left us in want. We think too much and feel too little. More than machinery, we need humanity.
We know the air is unfit to breathe and our food is unfit to eat. As if that's the way it's supposed to be. We know things are bad, worse than bad. They're crazy.
Silence! The great and powerful Oz knows why you have come.
You've got to say, I'm a human being. God damn it! My life has value.
You have meddled with the primal forces of nature.
Don't give yourselves to brutes, men who despise you, enslave you, who regiment your lives, tell you what to do, what to think, or what to feel, who drill you, diet you, treat you like cattle, use you as cannon fodder. Don't give yourselves to these unnatural men with machine minds and machine hearts.
It's time to buckle up for making sense of the madness.
And who loves you? And who do you love?
So it is official, everybody. Klaus Schwab has officially stepped down as chairman and really relinquished his roles within the World Economic Forum, aka Davos. Now, about, 9 months ago, probably a little under a year, he stepped down as the head. He kept his chairman's position, but now he is gone altogether. And first of all, I want to talk about the significance of this move and how I feel that this is a rebranding or an attempt at a rebranding of the organization to move forward and not just have to fold altogether and create something new. Or more than likely, they wouldn't create something new. They would use one of the other many globalist organizations and NGOs that have been propped up and then legitimize them further. But they really don't want the quote-unquote death knell of total and complete global mainstream illegitimacy. And they are certainly close to that. There are still many people that carry the torch for these organizations, but in large part, that is a propagated effort, and the people that are doing that on the other end are repeaters and have simply not looked at what these organizations are about. Because even those that may or may not be genuine on the left, if you're talking about criticizing billionaires, etc., they're here. However, they stump for what? The climate change agenda. That's the big one. So first and foremost, let's talk about Schwab for a moment. And we're going to show you the articles. We're actually going to do something fun here. We're going to play 2 recent clips of Klaus Schwab at Davos 2025. And we're also going to play a recent clip at the 2025 World Government Summit. Then we're going to play a little bit of a comedy video. Okay? We're going to break all those down because the comedy video will get me, I'm sure, a copyright strike, or not a strike, but who knows? I might have to cut it out later. Hopefully they don't pull the whole video down because I play it. I would certainly hate that, but we'll see what happens. And then we've got some Klaus greatest hits. Now, they're not even like the super greatest hits because there's the Angrier World clip that I could have gone with. There's the clip about everybody having a brain chip and feeling what he's thinking, etc. But I would assume most people at this point are pretty familiar with the overall greatest hits. I'm actually going to play clips that maybe are a little bit more obscure, just a little bit more obscure than that. I always try to do something a little bit different on the broadcast. I hope that's why you can continue to come back as a core audience, because it is extremely difficult to grow, as you guys know. So Klaus himself, I want to make this clear, is obviously not the head of this agenda or even the quote-unquote prophet of this agenda. In other words, when I talk about prophets of the agenda, you've got true intellectuals that buy into the system and are shepherded by the system of the establishment that are not necessarily born into the establishment, okay? And instead social climb in and are true visionaries. Love him or hate him, Ray Kurzweil would be one of those people, right? If you want to look at an overarching, real, a guy that created things, wrote about things that would be created, that is Kurzweil. Klaus Schwab's something different. Klaus Schwab is an establishment academic that gets recruited in the Harvard circles and, again, by no means is a stupid man, but he is then encircled, if you will, by people with the same vision of not only a technocratic neo-feudalistic future, but a transhumanist one that we often talk about. Even then, when this guy in college is being recruited. That's the movement. And that vision is also of global governance under collectivism. Because if you're going to have neo-feudalism, if you're going to have command control systems, collectivism, and that's something he's going to mention a few times in these clips that I think is important, is that route, whether you want to call it communism, socialism, etc. It is this idea that the individual and their rights and their ideas, even if they're true, like objectively true, they can be pushed down for the greater good. It's the old crack a few eggs to make an omelet, Although, you could take the crack a few eggs, in scientific practice or even in your career, making mistakes, that's a different thing. These people are willingly wanting to sacrifice those who are genuine and true to oppress the rest of us on behalf of their own agenda. By the way, which I believe Klaus and his cronies think overall, because they're social Darwinists, they believe they rule, therefore they should rule, and they're at the top of that food chain, right? So therefore they get to dictate what the species does and direct the species. They're pretty open about that, okay? So at the end of the day, these are like total madmen that on one end of the spectrum want to biologically live forever, but on the other end of the spectrum want to merge humanity with machines. And Klaus often talks about the definitions of what a human being is going to be. We're going to play that in these clips. So the other thing that is extremely important here is that they're looking for a replacement, but they're looking for a replacement that's likable and that's willing to work with the World Economic Forum. So, I mean, we got popes dying at a year older than this guy. He's 87 years old. At this point, he's pretty self-aware, if you will, of the global and really the United States, especially the people that pushed Trump into office time, hatred for him and this organization and other people. That's a real thing. That's a big shift, right? Yeah, certainly there are people out there that mock people like us, but they're aware of this and they just don't want to look at it. Because honestly, the information does become just too fantastically horrific in many cases. But I'll tell you what if all of a sudden, Elon Musk says, hey, the World Economic Forum is going to turn away from a lot of their bad stuff. We're going to go to Mars. We're going to do real clean energy and real sustainability, real UBIs, all things he's promoted in the past. And by the way, the World Economic Forum has always been set up to be a public mouthpiece for the agenda. doesn't really dictate the policies, if you will. Those policy meetings are really held like once a year in Bilderberg. Okay? And throughout the year, you got Council on Foreign Relations meetings, and you got Bohemian Grove, and there are deals being cut all over. But these are the public forums and faces. These are the photo ops, right? These aren't the big things that are going to be happening within the next month via Bilderberg. And it wouldn't shock me if, it's not somebody like Musk that steps in. I think it's a little too soon for a Musk, but it is somebody that is a past Bilderberg participant or perhaps even a steering member who becomes the new face of the World Economic Forum that is likelier to try to look a little bit more human and friendly. Just my thoughts. So, thumbs it up, subscribe, share. I want to remind everybody, no paid gigs. Need you now more than ever. $5, $10, $15 does mean the world to me over at the Buy Me a Coffee. The PayPal and other links are down below. Davos gathering founder Klaus Schwab quits as World Economic Forum chair. So again, he stepped down as the lead. Now he's done as the chair. He's retiring. He's an 87-year-old man. I mean, take a look at that face. Take a look at that face. So with that being said, what we're going to do now is we are going to jump into, like I said, 2 videos. This one's from Davos 2025. This is what we're going to start.
If this narrative of care for the next generation fails, we risk depending into self-serving and short-sighted behaviors that undermine collective progress and lead to profound societal and political shifts. To counter the erosion of hope and confidence in our future, we must go beyond reacting just to crisis. We must focus proactively, shaping the future in strategic, innovative, and constructive ways.
I'm just going to stop it here, okay, because we're 45 seconds into a little bit over a minute clip. It's about 25 seconds left. Just openly talking about collectivism, openly talking about how basically the confidence, he tries to mask it in this idea that the confidence in the future has been lost. No, confidence in your organizations have been lost, and the power structure has been lost, and for good reason, right? But then he talks about their main modus operandi right there, and that is, quote unquote, reacting to crisis. And that's why problem, reaction, solution, the Hegelian dialectic, false flag events are so important, and something that I focused on now for literal decades. Literal decades. And now it's actually gotten into the mainstream as the grays have come into my hair. And that is a good thing. And it's being acknowledged by somebody who has been in the narrative management business. Like, that's what this guy has really done. He's written books on these subjects. He's coddled the powerful and their ideal sets. And he's given them the public forum and the voice for that. And now people are no longer down with that public forum and voice of, you will own nothing and be happy. So he's talking about this, and he's, again, emphasizing the collective. Let's continue.
Despite the intense, short-term pressures and problems which we all feel, it is not cynicism or negativism which brings us forward, but practical steps to address the real-world challenges, what we want to do here during this meeting.
So here's the thing. He's not a dumb guy. He realizes that so many people are aware in a public perception of this, that, for instance, Donald Trump gets booed whenever he brings up Operation Warp Speed. Now, There was a video I wanted to play, but I just don't want to get thrown off. I encourage everybody to go check it out. John Rich talks about the fact that he explained to the president at a dinner, okay, and he said you might not want to hear this. And I want to be really careful with, paraphrasing it. But you go listen to that. And guys like Lindsey Graham, who are there, they tell the president, oh, you shouldn't listen to this guy, da, da, da. Lindsey Graham, I can't believe that guy's still in office. I'm hoping for what they're trying to supposedly do with election reform right now. And, voter ID and all these other measures. Quite frankly, I'm for those measures because we've been flooded with a plethora of ways to rig local, state, and federal elections, obviously. And this guy just, he wants an outright authoritarian autocracy, based on AI. That's what he's written about in his Fourth Industrial Revolution books. Or is it the Fifth Industrial Revolution? See? So, we're going to get to the next clip right now of Klaus talking at the 2025 World Government Summit.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, just think you were living 200 years back. It was the agricultural age. And then we had the first industrial revolution, with the invention of the steam engine, the second industrial revolution with mass production, electricity, the third industrial revolution with computers, and then the fourth industrial revolution. And I remember I spoke about the fourth industrial revolution when we opened this meeting in 2016. And now it's much more than just an industrial revolution. Similar to the transition from the agricultural age to the industrial age, we are now moving from the industrial age to the intelligent age. But there is one big difference compared to the first transition from the agricultural to the industrial age, where we had several generations to adapt. Now, this transition is happening at exponential speed. Everybody speaks about artificial intelligence, but just imagine what progress has been made just in the last 3 years.
And he's not wrong when he says that. This week we've been talking about the self-driving cars a little bit on the program and how they're everywhere in Phoenix. And I got to tell you, I'd be very hesitant to get into a self-driving car, not because I think that the creator of that or the business person is malicious, but I think that any device can be hacked. And if somebody had an ill will towards myself, it'd be very, very easy for me to be into a car accident that does not involve another human being, and would have all the plausible deniability in the world. That's I guess, just my paranoia. But forget about just me, anybody of importance. And that's a small part of this fourth industrial revolution because they're promising you all this great stuff, including uploading your consciousness. And that's why when we talk about this fourth industrial revolution, at the end of the day, the fifth industrial revolution is that post-human one. After they've gotten their global governance, their quote-unquote new world order, and it may not be called that, but literally a global order run by, a few bloodlines of authoritarians that hold the technological keys to what would appear to be somewhat physical immortality while selling us on a virtual reality utopia that we try to escape into because it's dystopia all around us that's manufactured by them. That's what's really nightmarish about it. So I promised you a laugh. I mean, we're having fun on this broadcast. This was a lengthy one because I've got several other clips of Klaus talking about these things. And I think that each one, again, deserves to be broken down. It's not the greatest hits. But right here are some greatest hits, comedy style, via Klaus Schwab, Own Nothing, and Be Happy.
Here's a little song I wrote. You might want to hear it in your pod. You'll owe nothing and be happy. Ain't got no cash, ain't got no car, but 24 booster shots in your arm. Owe nothing. Be happy. You can't even buy shit in the store because of your low social credit score. Owe nothing. Be happy. You'll owe nothing and be happy. Be happy and eat the bugs.
Damn, it feels good.
Oh, there's a lot of good ones over on that channel. I will say that. So I want to give a big shout out to that. Let's get a little more serious. We just see another one of the things that we're not even going to play the Eat the Bugs clip. You will eat the bugs. We're not going to talk about the bugs protein. We are going to talk about this right here, where he's talking to Sergey Brin at Davos about what it will mean in the future to be a human being.
I think this is a very not only interesting, it's a crucial issue. We are looking at technology very often threatening our present thinking, interpretation of how the world evolves, and actually we need new, you use the word meaning, we need new concepts to define what humanity is and what the purpose of our lives is. And we may go much more again into the direction of people are afraid of robotization, but it may be humanization, which robotization will allow. This is a very optimistic, let's say, perception, which personally I share, but would you agree?
Oh, 100%.
100%. 100%. This is a positive thing for him, to manipulate humanity. Okay? I mean, we are in the bio-nano era. I've discussed time and time again how they have now introduced this technology as the norm. We talk about what's in the skies over and over. I mean, what was it? 2 weeks ago, maybe 3? I showed you those videos over the last month or so here locally. How many times have I done that over the years? This channel's been around since 2007, folks. 2007. Again, these grays ain't come easy. Ain't no newcomer over here. So now we got like a 2-minute plus clip of Klaus Schwab essentially talking about what he calls the well-being economy. So this is the social credit score on steroids. This is how they really moved the economy through, the Trump administration politically against him into the Biden administration. And there are still some holding on to this. But now, with the outing of USAID, with some of the funding being cut off on some of these NGOs, it's become more difficult with these executive orders. And that is something real that I do believe. And when they talk about a well-being economy, it's a command and control economy that goes even beyond the environment, which is going to be a big thing, but into your very not Internet of Things, but Internet of Bodies. Remember, everything's about collectivism.
We have the capability to create a humankind which is more socially oriented, which is more creative, maybe more artistic, which moves much more from the notion of creating material wealth to creating well-being. And well-being is more than just material satisfaction. We can create a humankind which is healthier, a humankind which of course has a longer lifespan and a relatively healthy life in age. So we have the technology is fantastic. We have it in our hands. But those technologies have risks, and so it's particularly one risk which I want to mention. Those new technology provide asymmetric power to individuals. So I'm not now talking in detail what it means. You all can imagine. But it means that individuals can do a lot of harm. So we have to make sure that we, how shall I say, that we combat those individuals and that we shape the future in such a way that we use the potential of the new technology. And we have to be aware of the risks, and we have to prepare ourselves for the risks.
So let's just stop it right here, because it goes on for another like 45 seconds. Again, collectivism, good. The command and control of society and the narrative shaping that world, good. Collectivism. Stomping down on the individual and demonizing them at every turn is important. Because it is the individual that truly does threaten these people and their ideology. It is the individual that can spark that flame, all right, that ignites the fire of ideas in others so they can say, hey, wait, no, this is incorrect. We need a counterbalance. We need dissent. All right? Think about how powerful that is. And that's why this whole transhumanism thing, and I often talk about the transgenderism thing, they want to separate you from reality, from your biology, from your true greatness, from your true potential. We talk about humanity as a potential, yes, but it starts with the individual believing that they can work for something greater, that they can do something. Everybody else told them that they cannot, that they can prove to others a truth so profound that everybody else has denied it throughout the path of history. It's incredible. I mean, think about that. And there have been individuals who have manifested great things. And truly, many of us have those instances of greatness when we have true focus, true drive, true discipline. But that's the threat. And everything I just said there, when you are working at your highest levels and you are doing those things, think about how great you feel. Think about how great those around you feel. Think about even when problems come up, you feel like you can solve them. That comes from what? Individual power. And he's trying to crush that over and over and over again for well-being. Let's continue.
That's all what the forum is doing. I mean, this, just to give you a concrete, it's not only in our minds that we are doing something. We opened a center for the fourth industrial revolution in San Francisco, and I will have tomorrow discussions also with the government to see how we can engage Israel, to look at the technological progress, but at the same time at the societal effects, and to develop standards and protocols to make sure that those technologies are used for the benefit of mankind and not as destructive weapons. Thank you so much.
And again, that sounds great. Oh, it's always for the benefit of all mankind. But look at what AI is already doing. You know, he talked about, look how far it's come over the last 3 years. Look at how bad it is. Look at how much it lies, manipulates. And then we as humans allow that because, again, the narrative managers have said it's okay, and we'll just call it a hallucination. It becomes a joke. It's a really bad joke. It's a really dangerous joke. Here, Klaus is talking at the Club of Rome, another globalist organization, hell-bent on population management and control through this climate narrative of individuals doing things are bad, bad, bad for the earth. Okay? And here he is talking about spearheading that climate agenda. And I just want to say this. NASA are really some of the people that when we're talking about legitimizing it on a government level are more important. What he does and he's put out there is that narrative management through the World Economic Forum, the United Nations, the NGOs, giving those a platform, etc. But here he is, Klaus on the Club of Rome.
I've worked on climate change for 25 years.
I worked on climate change since 73.
So you
Just to
worked on
tell
it
you,
longer than
because
I
I was the person who gave the Club of Rome the first big platform. I share with you the concern, and I think we can solve those issues only if we repair our global architecture and our global system.
Repair, reimagine, the Great Reset. See, like I said, these aren't the greatest hits. We could have done that. We could have been lazy. We could have went and got a big compilation video. But I really wanted to show some of the other things out there, right? This one right here is the one where it talks about kind of penetrating the cabinets, right? And by the way, David Gergen sitting next to him, another political insider, another political pundit, a Bohemian Grover, right? Let's hear what he has to say here.
This notion to integrate young leaders is part of the World Economic Forum since many years. When I mention now names like Mrs. Merkel, even Vladimir Putin and so on, they all have been young global leaders of the World Economic Forum. Mm-hmm. But what we are very proud of now, the young generation, like Prime Minister Trudeau, President of Argentina and so on, that we penetrate the cabinets. So yesterday I was at a reception for Prime Minister Trudeau, and I know that half of this cabinet, or even more half of this cabinet, are actually young global leaders of the World Economic Forum.
So, again, Trudeau's been repudiated. This is really why they have to rebrand. This is in the past. We showed you those 2025 clips. Now he's stepping down. But at the end of the day, it's about one thing first, and it is that regimentation of all human beings to institute this globally, the quote-unquote New World Order.
Dr. Kissinger, our satellite time is running out. What wonderful opportunity to conclude our week here with such concrete proposals and ideas of how we can really create, I would say, a new world order.
A new world order with Kissinger just before his death, who is one of the Mr. New World Orders. And you can see that in my film, Invisible Empire, A New World Order Defined, where Henry Kissinger gets more than a moment and really is, I'd say he's strong in the first 30 or so minutes. I think mentioned beyond that later on, of course, later on we discussed the Obama administration. But Klaus, also a proponent of the quote-unquote New World Order. Folks, thumbs it up, subscribe, and share. I really need you to check out the alternative platforms. Also, all the documentary films are free. $5, $10, $15. It does mean the world to me. Big donors need you now more than ever. Again, this is true independent media where we kick, claw, and scratch for every view, and we really do try to give you something that you do not see not only in the mainstream, but in the alternative. We give you a perspective that is truly outside of conservative, liberal. Why? Because it's not about left or right. It is always about right and wrong. I absolutely love you guys, and I will see you all on the flip side.